Joseph Price back here in the house. Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody, good afternoon. It could be afternoon. It could be morning where you are. Could be evening. It could be midnight. I don't know when it is. But hello, and thanks for stopping by. Today, I've got a real exciting guest. Um, we have Mr. Allan Teixeira with me. He's going to tell you about a fantastic organization that he is building to serve men that have concerns, men that have concerns with advanced sex addiction that has advanced itself into the buying of services. Some of those services are bought by sex trafficked individuals. This is not my area of expertise. It's his area of expertise. So I'm very proud and privileged to have him here to tell us a little bit about his organization, what he's doing. There is an upcoming event that he's going to tell you about. So without further ado, Mr. Allan Teixeira. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Tell me, what's the name of your organization, please?
It's an interesting question. The name is Buyer Rehabilitation Project, a John's Hope. We put that on it, that tagline, so that people might not be confused and think it was for rehabbing a house or helping some housewife to stop maxing out her credit cards at the mall. It's for sex buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually thinking of changing the name, and we've got a short list, and that'll probably happen in the next few months. But we're probably going to change it to something like a John's Hope, the Sex Buyer Transformation,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
But the bottom line is
Yeah,
you started an organization, and the emphasis is to help people not get involved in the
right.
process of sex trafficking, or at least reverse. I guess their need, their desire, their addiction to
Yeah.
sex trafficked individuals as well as prostitution. So, when did you start the Buyer Rehabilitation Project?
It was early March of 2021, so we're coming up on our second anniversary. And, this all came out of my own life experience. I feel the need to apologize to your audience, especially any ladies in the audience, for my past behavior. I did fall into buying sex directly. That started for me in about 2002. And I was immediately hooked on that and a slave to it for about 17 years until I found the right resources.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so anyway, I was able to get well, which is great. And in the process of getting well, I realized that the programs I went through are designed to help anybody overcome any unwanted sexual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really powerful thing because it includes even the men that are directly buying sex, and just like I was. So I really wanted to atone
And
for
that's
my.
because sex addiction isn't about sex, isn't that right?
No, it's not. It's not. It's about medicating emotional wounds and feeling badly and that kind of stuff. It's really, if you get down to it, it's really a chemical addiction because we're just using the free pharmacy between our ears and the mechanism to go there, which is between our legs, to to get a hit of dopamine and some other things. The cocktail of chemicals that floods your brain when you have a sexual release, and that can be very addictive. And that's really what we're addicted to.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
addicted to numbing out and enjoying that flood of chemical release for just a brief respite from the pain that we feel. And of course, only moments after that happens, the pain comes back, plus the shame that you acted out inappropriately sexually. And it ends up becoming a vicious cycle where you just go there again and again and again.
But each time it comes back a little bit more fiercer, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like any drug addiction, you have tolerances. And, it's a bad path to be on. That path can start out with the kind of porn from the 70s where it's a monogamous relationship. Maybe the couple you're watching is married. They're very loving and kind to one another. And then you get into the porn of the 90s, which, may have more than just a couple. And then you get into the modern porn where people are, being very degrading and demonstrating violence to women. And then, there's darker places that people go. And thank God I never did. But, the people who seek out child pornography, are just further down that path. And really at the end of that path is Ted Bundy. That's who's at the end of that path.
Yeah.
So we have to get guys off this path. It's not a healthy thing.
It isn't at all. So tell me the goal of the Buyer Rehabilitation Project.
Well, the goal is simple. I want to bring lifelong freedom to those in sexual bondage. And I do that by focusing on the men that are directly buying sex, because they're the reason for the market. Consumer level demand is the cause of the human sex trafficking market, and that market begins and ends with demand. So if I can just get the men that are doing that to stop their behavior permanently, I can diminish the market. And when I realized that the tools I was exposed to in my own healing journey provided a mechanism to actually do this in the life of a man who's behaving this way, I said, somebody's got to get these two people together. We got to get the men who are buying sex and introduce them to the healing materials to overcome their addiction. And that's really, I think, the epiphany, because the whole world has misdiagnosed this problem when they look at the human sex trafficking market. They assume it's an education problem.
Mm-hmm.
You could read any of the statutes about buying sex, any state, really any country. You could look at all the curricula of all the John schools that they make convicted guys go to when they're caught. It's all based on that it's an education problem. It just assumes that if you tell the guy that you could get an STD and that girl didn't really love you, and she's got a manager called a pimp who's very mean, beats her up and takes her money, that you'll just stop with that knowledge. And that's not the way it works. These guys are medicating very deep, very severe emotional pain through sex. Most of them have intimacy disorders, and to be with a real woman, even though it's transactional, is a way that they can feel, or at least trick themselves into feel like they're valued and validated and loved. That's what's driving it. It's addiction. It's an addiction problem. And if you look in the research, excuse me, they've done studies and they say that 75% of men who buy sex are sex addicts.
Isn't that something?
And yeah, it is. But I like to think about it a little bit more deeply, because I've studied recovered sex buyers. I have data on them. We have guys who were buying once a week. That's 50 times a year. And guys that are buying twice a week, that's 100 times a year. And even guys who are buying 3 times a week, that's 150 sex purchases a year. So if 3 out of every 4 sex buyers are addicts, that means the sex addicts, those 3 guys, just as an example, that's 300 sex purchases. The non-addict might do something on his birthday or celebrate once or twice a year, right? So what's 300 divided into 302? It's over 99% of sex purchases are motivated by addiction. And nobody's seeing this or connecting these dots. It's not an education problem. The sex market is an addiction problem. And that's actually good news, because as Ron White says, you can't fix stupid.
No.
But you can fix addiction. You can fix addiction. It is not easy. It takes a lot of commitment and a lot of time, and it takes some money. But you can overcome addiction.
Now, here's the question
So
everybody wants to know. Here's the question everybody wants to know. How long does it take to rehabilitate a sex buyer?
Yeah, well, it depends on the person. A lot of people think if a guy's buying sex that it takes longer than if they're just addicted to porn. I'm not sure I agree with that, because what's driving the behavior is some unresolved grievance or life wound that they're medicating through the behavior. And if they can get the right kind of therapy and work through that wound and process it in a healthy biblical way, then you've just had an event, right, where the fuel that was driving that behavior is gone. because you view it differently now because you got healed through therapy. And so you could be having egregious acting out that's very frequent and have it just pretty much stop dead in its tracks when you reach that point in your therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just depends on the person. The general rule is that sobriety can be achieved in 3 to 6 months. But lifelong healing takes quite a bit longer because sobriety is one thing. Permanent recovery is an entirely different animal. There are several relapses along the way. Typically, guys just don't stop cold turkey and never, relapse. That's just not the way it works. But if you study the gradient of the frequency and the egregiousness with which they're acting out, it just diminishes over time as they work on this. The frequency gets less and less. You could have a guy who starts out masturbating to porn 6 times a day. Then it's 3 times a day, then it's daily, then it's 5 times a week, and then 3 times a week, and you get the idea. Pretty soon he can do 30 and 60 and 90 days of sobriety, and it's a process, right? Dr. Ted Roberts says it takes between 2 and 5 years to totally overcome sex addiction. And Dr. Patrick Carnes says it can take as long as 7 years through 6 distinct stages of recovery to get well. So that's
a lot of work.
That's the answer. It is a lot of work. But really, when these guys get exposed to the kind of community that we have in our recovery groups, they crave it. They come running, and what seems like a big burden really just becomes a lifestyle. And they crave it, and they want to come. And then even after they're well, they still want to come. They want to lead their own group and stay involved. So it's a blessing.
How much does it cost to eliminate a sex purchase?
I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question but me. Like I said, I've studied data on recovered sex buyers. It's anecdotal data. I don't have a statistically significant sample size yet. I only have 7 men. But those 7 men who have permanently stopped their behavior have erased from our collective future 60,000 hours of engagement time with internet pornography, over 10,300 sex purchases. We think they've avoided 2 forced abortions in the traffic community. They've removed about $750,000 from the sex market. And we know that about 500,000 of that would have flowed into the drug market and been responsible for all kinds of crime. The impact on the sex traffic community, those 10,300 sex purchases, that equates to 2.85 years of freedom for one sex trafficked individual on average, which is the same as putting a sex trafficker out of business for over 6 months. That's the impact with just 7 men. Now, I say when I talk about this that my rehabilitative concept that we have at the nonprofit can sustainably erase a sex purchase for less than $10.
Okay.
So really the direct cost was literally pennies. It was like less than $1. But these groups at the time were all working on a volunteer basis, and my business plan is to monetize the recovery group process. So we have individual therapy scholarships we give out to guys, and then the hope is as we raise money that we can give out group therapy scholarships. We'll probably start off with a $1,000 scholarship, which would sponsor a guy for 50 meetings a year.
Mm-hmm.
For the year, he gets a scholarship at $20 per meeting. And then gradually, as the nonprofit grows and we're able to raise more money, I'd like to move that to $40 and ultimately $60 per meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that statistic of less than $10 to erase, that assumes that there's an investment of $60 per attendee per meeting to help fund the nonprofit and pay the group leaders that help that guy.
Okay.
If we can do that, I think then the nonprofit itself will become sustainable because, this is hard work. Guys burn out after a year or two, and we don't want that knowledge and experience walking out the door. We want to compensate them not just for what they've overcome and the wealth of knowledge they have and the compassion, to, get down there in the mud and the blood with these guys and deal with the dirty stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're taking time away from their families, and I just really believe they deserve to be compensated so that they can make it a vocation
Mm-hmm.
and stay with it, right? So yeah, um, 2 years at $60 a meeting, that's 100 meetings. So that's $6,000, and then when you add in their individual therapy and their workbooks and stuff, it's about a $7,500 investment for one guy to get that 2 years in, which is usually enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if you compare his erased sex purchases, his sex appetite, in this way, using the traffic market to that investment, it works out to about $4, maybe a little less per sex purchase. And then you have to compensate for the adverse selection because not every guy who tries this has success. Some of them wash out. And of course, when they wash out, you stop investing in them, but you lose a little money there, maybe about $1 per sex purchase.
Right.
And then
Right.
there's overhead for the nonprofit. We have software and, we have a staff and, all kinds of insurance and stuff. It costs money to run the nonprofit. I work hard to do that as efficiently as possible, but it's still there. So when you add in the overhead and all that stuff, we're comfortably under $10.
Okay.
And I'm very proud of that.
Now, talk to me about sex trafficking as a problem in our community, both in Florida and nationwide.
Oh, well, the statistics that I have on this are already getting to be almost 10 years old. They're from 2014, but just very high level. They say that human trafficking, which includes sex and non-sex trafficking, is the second largest criminal industry on the planet. I disagree with that. Drugs are more. They're at about 150 billion a year, but they don't consider pornography being the gateway drug to the sex market.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think there's an argument to be made to add the porn market and the human sex trafficking market together because they really are the same problem.
Yeah,
If you
I
do
was getting
that,
ready. I was
yeah,
getting
if you
ready
do
to ask
that,
you,
then
what's the
then that
connection?
problem's the biggest, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like 150 billion with human trafficking, and then the pornography is 100 billion. So that puts it over drugs at about $250 billion a year. Yeah, there's a strong connection. I mean, I don't want to tell people that every person who looks at porn is going to get addicted because that's not true. But most get addicted, and not every porn addict directly buys sex. And they should realize they are sex buyers. They're what I call indirect sex buyers because the actresses that they're viewing are trafficked in most cases. And even if they're not paying for a site, if they're not swiping their credit card, they're still contributing financially to that sex market because their engagement time, their mouse clicks, all of that allows the pornographer to charge for their advertising and fund their operation. So they're indirect sex buyers. And if they interact with a real life person, that's direct sex buying.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the connection. Not every porn addict is going to go there, but almost without exception, every direct sex buyer started as a porn addict. It's clearly and without argument the gateway drug into sex buying.
So
And
say
we
that
spend a
again.
lot of time.
Say that again. They need to hear
Say it
that.
again.
Yeah.
Pornography is unequivocally and undeniably the gateway drug into sex buying. It is fueling the sex market, the illicit sex market.
Wow. All right. So yeah, what an awesome time that we've had together this afternoon. You've got some upcoming events. Tell me about the Freedom Walk for 2023.
Okay, so we have two annual events. One is meant to be outreach and preventative in this porn space. That's our Men's Integrity Conference. And we'd love to have you come and speak when we have it this November. It's the first
I
weekend
already
in
told
November.
you I'm coming.
Yeah, Saturday, November 4th. I'd like you to be a guest speaker. We're going to do it this year as a father-son thing.
Okay.
So we're going to be right out there. We're going to be advertising to families and to moms. Most parents know if their son has a problem. And we just want to educate these dads about the nature of the problem. We think oftentimes the dad has a problem, and this will give him cover to go because he's going to help his teenage son But I think the outcomes of a young person dealing with this problem are just going to be much better if their family understands it, like really understands it, and can be supportive of them getting the kind of help they're going to need. So that's the outreach we're doing. It's under that preventative umbrella. And to fund that, we need to raise some money. So our second annual event is a Freedom Walk. So this is a peer-to-peer fundraising event. We have it scheduled for Saturday, March 25th. So that's coming quickly, about 5 weeks out. And, this is designed where a lot of people would give a little bit of money, and it adds up to something meaningful for us, so we'd have a budget to operate with. It's just a 1 mile walk. We're having it in North Tampa, but you don't have to be in Tampa to help us. You can walk in solidarity with us at a time and place of your choosing, or you can choose not to walk at all. But we'll be giving you information at the end of this podcast on our website, where you can go and register for that. And there's several levels of participation. You can simply register as a walker and make a small donation. But you could also register as a coordinator, which gives you more options. You could set up a team and reach out to your contacts through email and social media for sponsorship, and sort of become a fundraiser for us of your own. Most people, they have a default goal of $300, which isn't hard to accomplish. And, there are people that have done walks like this that have raised thousands with this sponsorship model. And then the other thing you can do is actually build your own web page through a wizard. It's very easy and quick. And then you can use that to reach out through social media and your contacts to enroll other people, not just to sponsor you, but to come to the walk. And they could come as just a walker or as a coordinator of their own. So this is designed to spread virally and make a big footprint and again, raise a lot of money, but doing it by getting a little bit from a lot of people. So that's the concept for the Freedom Walk. We're very excited to have our inaugural one this March, and it's going to make a big impact on what we can do in 2023.
Well, good. I'm glad that you came by to let us know about that. I will post this where I can post this to let everybody know about this. And I appreciate the invitation coming in November. I'm already going to lock my calendar down for that. Is there anything that you want us to know before I leave about the event, about your organization? Anything at all?
So let me tell you about our groups. Under the umbrella of the nonprofit, we have 2 groups up and running right now. One meets at 7:00 on Tuesday nights. On Thursday nights. That's tonight. I'll be doing that after I leave here. And it's at a place called the Palace. And that is a mobile home park in Pinellas County that is strictly populated by men that are on the sex offenders registry. So these are guys who got in trouble, went to prison on a sex-related charge, and have gotten out. They're on probation, and the Pinellas County likes them to all live in this one place because it's just easier for the counselors and the parole officers and the police to keep tabs on them because they're all in one spot. So they're not allowed to leave, and they're not allowed without permission and written permission, and they're not allowed, to have smartphones or internet access. So that group takes place in their clubhouse on Thursday nights.
Okay.
So that's one. The second group is in Polk County at the Polk Correctional Institute. It's inside the prison.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Do you know Grady Judd personally?
No, I
you weren't able to. You weren't
person.
able to meet the Grady.
No, I don't know what he would think about our ideas because they're not strictly conservative. They're a mix. I want to say that's what this whole process, my whole experience, healing taught me that both ideologies can be legitimate, just depending on the problem you're trying to solve. Because this requires a lot of compassion. It requires, looking the other way about some bad behavior and investing into somebody who's been culpable and helping them to resolve some things so that they can get well and stop their behavior. That's a very liberal position. But at
Well,
the
it's a
same time,
liberal position, but it also, the thing is we could say it's a liberal position, but I'm going to kind of end that right here.
oh,
Kevin
okay.
Skinner,
Uh-huh.
I'll put it on record. They can sue me if they want. I basically stole training from Kevin Skinner. So I figured
Okay.
out how to get online and get his training. And I heard him tell a bunch of therapists. He said, I know you guys are going to have this tendency to form opinions about your clients and this and that and the other, but I want you to think about something. And I want you to think about the fact that these people have a story, and their stories like your story, and everybody has a story. And one of the things I found by being a therapist, this is what Kevin said, is that if you knew their story, and this is for a people, period, if you knew their story, there's nothing that they can do to surprise you. Nothing. So some of what we need to do is we need to take the time to just stop and understand people and hear their story. Because really, if you knew the story of people, and we're not making bad behavior right, but we're just stating a fact. If you knew their story, you wouldn't be surprised by anything that anybody ever does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's exactly how God operates. He knows what we're going to do before we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I wanted to say that, the men in our programs are fully accountable for what they've done. There's no easy out. They have to take full responsibility for that and their own healing.
Mm-hmm.
So in the groups, they really take ownership of it. And here's where some people would call these principles more conservative. And this is what I meant by both ideologies are legitimate depending on where you apply them. They have to do their homework. The locus of their accountability is on themselves. It's not an accountability group where, if the leader isn't that good, then the guy in the group says, well, it's not my fault I didn't get well. The leader didn't fix me, or a couple guys didn't show up, and
it's kind of like real life. You can't blame nobody for what happened.
The healing actually takes place when they do their homework.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of the group is to share what they learned and what everybody else learned from the same homework lesson, where they can grow, because there's other people that took it a little deeper or maybe had a different angle. It ends up being really beneficial for everybody.
Oh, I know about the homework. The homework's where you grow. The homework, and when they don't do the homework, that's when you, as the coach or the facilitator, feel like,
So that prison group in Polk County is they're all from Tampa Bay, and they're all short timers. So they may have been at different prisons all over the state, but when they get within 5 years of release, they get transferred to Polk Correctional.
Okay.
And so they generally are not a risk, because they don't want to squash their release date by doing anything stupid.
Right.
But then inside of that facility, they have a chapel with 2 Christian dorms where all the men in there are believers and they're trustees, and they want to get well. And even though, I don't know the percentage of who's in there on a sex crime, they're in there for all kinds of crimes. But, this problem is so pervasive, especially among an incarcerated population, because, acting out for these root causes of addiction, it can cause them to break the law and get caught and go to prison, whether, it's violence or drugs or something sexually related.
And so sex buying in and of itself is an illegal act.
So there's a lot of interest among that population to be in my group. And we've got 17 guys in that group, and we hopefully will start another one next month. And we're just going to offer our introductory class over and over. And then the ones who really want to stick with it will go into a deeper class until they're released. And it's so we got 22 men getting healing, 2 groups. And that's the size where we are now. But we could do a lot more, when we get some funding. So I'll be applying for lots of grants, and I'm looking forward to see how well this first inaugural walk goes. So here's how you can help. You can go to buyerrehabilitationproject.org, poke around, get familiar. There's a lot of good information there. For the walk, you'll want to visit the events page, and there's a button where you can register. And I encourage you to register as a coordinator and spread the word. Set up a team and set a goal for fundraising. But if you're not in a position to do that, you can just set up to walk and make whatever donation you're comfortable making. And that is the best way to help us for this year achieve all of our goals.
It's been fabulous, Allan. I really appreciate you stopping by, sir. It's really been an enlightening experience early today, having you tell us your story. And it's also been enlightening having you tell us about the organization that you've created because of the difference that you're making on the planet. Some people, they can just get healed or have a better life and then just go on about their business. But you decided that that wasn't good enough for you. So, I acknowledge you for that. And anything else you want to tell us?
No, you've been very kind. I appreciate the opportunity. And, I look forward to working with you into the future.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And we're looking forward to supporting everything that we can, Buyers Rehabilitation Project wise. And I know that, that might not be your final name, but the organization as a whole is helping men that have amped their sex addiction up to the point where they bought and it's pretty strong. Now, here's the thing before we go. I mean, you got to have some kind of resources to get hooked on buying sex workers, don't you? Or, it takes a little bit of money to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah. In my case, I had a part-time business that brought me some extra income, and I was able to use that, to fund my behavior.
And it's very disruptive in people's financial lives. Sometimes people get caught and they steal and embezzlement stories and stuff.
Yeah, I always, I was able to limit my budget for this to what I was able to earn. But I know that's not the case for a lot of guys.
Okay.
I've heard of guys that spent the money that was supposed to go to the mortgage on it and lost their house. And, you had an interview, I think, a little while back of somebody that
200,000.
It's crazy. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah. So anyway, my theme that I want the whole world to know is porn's not free, and recovery is where you pay for that porn that you thought was free.
That's right.
I'm Joseph F. Price. I had a wonderful guest here, Mr. Allan Teixeira. Wonderful guy. Oh, my goodness. I lucked out. I got to thank Lynn Riesmer for putting us together.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Actually, the author of this wonderful book, Porn Free. Very informational book. It's one person. It's an army of wonderful people like you and I, and so I'm glad to be part of your army, and I'm glad to have you part of my army, and we'll do wonderful things together. And if there's anything I can do, please reach out, Allan. It's my pleasure, sir, that you were here. As always, everybody, drive with care, walk with caution, make today and every day your living masterpiece. The thing that matters is not biting the whole apple at one time. Just worry about making the right next move. Don't even worry about making the right next move. Just be thoughtful and diligent and cognizant and make the right next move, and make the right next move for a bunch of years and see how that works out for you. God bless you. Have a nice day.
God bless you too, Joey. God bless your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.